Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel today. The situation in Eastern Europe is turning critical as Belarus faces mass unrest and Russia moves quietly behind the scenes. Tension is rising by the hour and the entire region is on alert. The streets of Minsk are filled with protests, chants, and chaos as thousands of citizens demand change and call for freedom from Moscow's shadow reports from multiple cities across Belarus confirm that demonstrations are spreading. Fast, people are waving, national flags shouting slogans and clashing with security forces. The government has imposed restrictions on media and communication, yet information continues to leak through social channels. Despite the heavy censorship, this uprising appears larger and more coordinated than anything seen in recent years. Belarus has long been one of Russia's closest allies, but now that bond is cracking under pressure, the country is struggling with economic collapse, rising inflation, and public anger. Against the leadership, many citizens believe that their government has sold national independence to Moscow, and that Belarus is now just another satellite controlled by the Kremlin. Inside Russia, officials are watching closely. The Kremlin has described the unrest as a Western plot designed to destabilize Belarus and weaken Russian influence. However, many experts believe Moscow itself is playing a dangerous game, using political pressure and intelligence operations to tighten control over Minsk. As President Lukashenko faces growing opposition both at home and abroad, in the capital tension is high. Security forces patrol the streets and armored vehicles are stationed near government buildings. Witnesses describe loud sirens, crowds forming, and police units moving aggressively through neighborhoods despite attempts to restore order. Protests keep spreading, fueled by anger, frustration, and a deep sense of betrayal. The people are demanding an end to Russian interference and calling for new leadership that represents Belarus, not Moscow. At the same time, something subtle but strategic is happening in Ukraine. While the world watches Belarus, Kyiv is quietly shifting its military posture along the front lines. Intelligence sources report that Ukrainian forces are moving in small, coordinated groups, reinforcing key positions and fortifying defenses along the northern border. It is a silent but deliberate move timed perfectly as Russia becomes distracted by the growing instability. In Belarus, Ukrainian officials have not made any public statements, but satellite imagery shows significant changes near critical zones. Logistics convoys, military trucks, and supply routes appear to be in motion, suggesting preparation for future operations. This quiet mobilization could be one of the most important strategic adjustments of the conflict, as Kyiv seeks to take advantage of Moscow's divided attention. Meanwhile, Belarusian protesters are growing bolder. They chant freedom slogans, demand the resignation of Lukashenko, and call for an end to Russian dominance. Videos show crowds waving flags and singing national songs, while riot police push back with shields and batons. Despite arrests and violence, the resistance continues to grow. Every night, the streets fill again as people refuse to back down. In Moscow, the situation is being portrayed as an attack on regional stability. Russian state television claims NATO and Ukraine are behind the demonstrations, aiming to create chaos at Russia's doorstep. This narrative is repeated across Russian media channels, painting Belarus as the latest victim of foreign interference, but many outside observers see the opposite. They argue that Belarus is rising against decades of control from the Kremlin. European governments are watching with concern. Leaders from Poland, Lithuania, and Germany have called for restraint and urged Belarusian authorities to avoid bloodshed. The European Union is considering sanctions and humanitarian support as images of clashes flood social media. Diplomats warn that if Russia intervenes directly, the crisis could spill across borders and draw in neighboring states, escalating tensions throughout the continent. And Kyiv government advisors and military analysts are studying every movement in Belarus. The Ukrainian leadership believes that the unrest could weaken Moscow's command structure and disrupt logistics networks that supply Russian forces in the ongoing war. Some believe this could be a turning point where Ukraine gains a strategic edge by simply waiting and watching as Russia is forced to divert attention northward. The Belarusian economy is collapsing. Under pressure, factories are closing, supply chains are broken, and foreign investors are fleeing as panic spreads through the markets. Local businesses cannot operate due to blockades and shortages. People are lining up outside banks and grocery stores hoping to withdraw money or find essential goods. Inflation is rising daily, and uncertainty fills the air. In several cities, local officials have reportedly defected, joining the protesters or refusing to carry out government orders. This growing disobedience signals a possible fracture within the state structure, one that could accelerate the fall of the current regime. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of confusion as police units abandon checkpoints and protesters take control of administrative buildings. Russia's involvement remains ambiguous, but undeniable reports suggest Russian advisors have been deployed to Belarus disguised as technical experts or security consultants. Their role appears to be monitoring government responses and coordinating intelligence activities. Some insiders claim that Moscow is preparing to send additional support under the pretext of stabilizing the situation. Ukraine's military command is analyzing these developments carefully while publicly maintaining silence privately. The mood is confident. Senior Ukrainian officers believe that Russia will soon be forced to choose between supporting Lukashenko and maintaining its current positions in Ukraine. Both options will drain resources and create vulnerabilities. Kyiv intends to exploit those weaknesses through tactical positioning and intelligence gathering. Western intelligence agencies are also deeply engaged, monitoring communications and satellite data for signs of Russian troop movements. NATO has increased aerial patrols near Belarus and Poland, while military analysts warn of possible spillover scenarios. If Russian intervention turns direct, this is not just a Belarusian revolt, it could become another flashpoint in an already volatile region. The people of Belarus continue to defy curfews and restrictions. Despite threats from authorities, thousands gather every night demanding freedom and chanting for independence. The atmosphere is charged with hope and fear. At the same time, for many Belarusians, this is not only a fight against their own government, but a fight to escape Russia's political shadow that has dominated their country for decades. Inside Moscow, there is growing unease. Opposition voices are using the Belarus crisis to criticize Putin's leadership. They argue that Russia's imperial mindset is collapsing under its own weight, that by trying to control its neighbors, Moscow is losing both allies and influence. State media tries to suppress this debate, but social networks tell a different story. Frustration is spreading even among Russian citizens tired of endless wars and sanctions in Minsk. The government is becoming increasingly isolated. State television continues to broadcast messages of strength, but the cracks are obvious. The public no longer believes official statements. Rumors circulate about divisions within the military leadership. Some generals are reportedly advising Lukashenko to negotiate with the opposition rather than risk civil war, as the unrest grows the human cost. His mounting reports indicate dozens injured and several dead, though official numbers are unclear. Hospitals are overwhelmed with the injured families' search for missing relatives, while volunteers distribute food and water to protesters. It is a scene of desperation, resilience, and courage as ordinary people face down one of the most powerful security states in Europe. In the background, Ukraine continues its quiet maneuvers. Some analysts call it a chess move in slow motion. Every small repositioning builds pressure without drawing headlines. The goal is clear: to strengthen Ukraine's defenses while letting Russia overextend itself on multiple fronts. Kyiv's strategy appears to be patience, precision, and preparation. Across Europe, governments are holding emergency meetings. NATO intelligence units have been placed on high alert. The situation in Belarus could change the entire balance of power in Eastern Europe. If the revolt succeeds, Moscow loses a key ally. If it fails, Russia tightens its grip and the confrontation with the West deepens. Either outcome will have long-term consequences for regional security. Belarus stands at a crossroads. Some fear foreign intervention, while others hope it will bring liberation. The streets are filled with courage but also exhaustion. Protesters know that the path ahead is dangerous, yet they refuse to return home until their voices are heard and their nation is free for many. This is not just about politics. It is about dignity and survival.